What does Nazareth and Ken Wilkinson have in common? At first glance, they seem like worlds apart. One, an ancient town in Galilee, and the other, a chef from Calvert, a small place in Texas. But both made the same mistake. They shunned their source of help, transformation, and success. Nazareth turned her back on Jesus, and Ken, the locals of Calvert. Jesus returned to his hometown, Nazareth. The people there had heard about his miracles. They knew he healed the sick, cast out demons, and taught with great wisdom. But when Jesus stood in the synagogue and read from the prophet Isaiah, he made a bold statement. He said he was the one sent to bring good news to the poor, freedom to the oppressed, and sight to the blind. The people did not celebrate. They were shocked. "Isn't this Joseph's son? The carpenter's boy?" they asked. They couldn't believe that someone they knew could be the chosen one. Jesus saw their doubt. He told them, no prophet is accepted in his hometown. Then he reminded them of history. Elijah helped a widow in Zarephath, not an Israelite widow. Elisha healed a Syrian leper, not one from Israel. This made the people furious. How dare he suggest that outsiders were more worthy of God's miracles than they were? They dragged Jesus out of town, ready to throw him off a cliff. But Jesus walked away, untouched. The people of Nazareth rejected the very person who could have saved them. They were too proud to see the truth. They believed they knew who Jesus was, and because of that, they missed their chance. This same mistake happened centuries later with Ken Wilkinson, a restaurant owner in Texas. Ken Wilkinson had a dream. He wasn't just a chef, he was an artist. He loved chocolate and fine food. He wanted his restaurant, Coco Amoda, to feel like a little piece of Paris in the small town of Calvert, Texas. But there was a problem. Calvert wasn't Paris. Ken had big dreams, but no customers. The locals weren't interested in fancy French food. They wanted burgers, barbecue, and fried chicken. Ken refused to change. He kept his high prices and never advertised to the local community. He believed his restaurant was special, and people would travel from far away to experience it. They didn't. The bills piled up. The restaurant was failing. But Ken held on. Then came Robert Irvine. Robert Irvine, a famous chef who helps failing restaurants, visited Coco Amoda. He saw the problem right away. The restaurant was beautiful, but empty. Robert begged Ken to connect with the locals. Ken resisted. "This is fine dining," he insisted. But Robert pushed. The menu got simpler. The doors were opened to the local community. It looked like a fresh start. Robert had a habit. He didn't just listen to the owner. He talked to the people. In Calvert, that meant the local firefighters. They had seen Coco Amoda. They had walked past it, but they had never stepped inside. Why? Because Ken never invited them in. He never made them feel welcome. Ken had built a wall. Not a real one, but a wall of exclusivity. He thought his restaurant was for outsiders, for food lovers who appreciated French cuisine. The locals felt shut out. Robert made Ken face the firefighters. One of them said, "We never felt welcome." Ken was silent. He finally understood. He had ignored the very people who could have saved his business. Robert pushed Ken to make things right. Ken invited the firefighters inside. He cooked for them. He talked with them. For the first time, Coco Amoda belonged to the town. But fate had other plans. In 2016, Ken suffered a bad fall. His health declined, and he couldn't run the restaurant anymore. Coco Amoda closed. The dream ended, but the lesson remained. These stories hold powerful lessons for anyone chasing a dream or building something of their own. Pride, for one, can quietly ruin everything. Ken Wilkinson had a beautiful vision for his restaurant. He saw it as a world-class experience tucked into a tiny Texas town, but he refused to listen, to adjust, or even to acknowledge that his way might not be the only way. The people of Nazareth made the same mistake with Jesus. They thought they already knew who he was and couldn't accept that he might be more than the carpenter's son. In both cases, pride stood in the way of truth and success. Community is another lesson. Ken built Coco Amoda with love and skill, but he left out the most important ingredient: people. He didn't connect with the locals. He didn't even try, and they noticed. When Jesus visited Nazareth, he was rejected not because of anything he lacked, but because the people couldn't open their hearts to someone they thought they already understood. In both stories, the very ones who could have helped, who should have been part of the journey, were left out. Then there's the lesson of flexibility. Ken believed in fine dining, and he held on to that belief so tightly that it nearly crushed him. Only when Robert Irvine forced him to adjust, did the business begin to show signs of life. The people of Nazareth, too, were unwilling to shift their view of what the Messiah should be. Success, whether in faith or business, often depends on how willing we are to adapt. And finally, there's the harsh truth that sometimes we don't realize what we had or what we missed until it's too late. Ken didn't truly understand his mistake until he faced the firefighters and heard their quiet disappointment. By then, his health was failing and time was short. The people of Nazareth didn't realize who Jesus was until long after he had gone. Opportunities come, and then they go. The real challenge is seeing them before they slip away. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this.